So many of us are chasing a yes, not realizing that the no gives us benefits that we may not get if we're always looking for a yes. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Wisdom That Sticks, where our goal is to explore biblical truths that can change how we live our everyday life. I know. I can tell by the intensity of how you click the video. I know, don't look at me like that. I know it's been a while since we have uploaded some content, but we are back. We are back and we got some things that we need to talk about. All right. So let's get this show on the road. Now that we got that out of the way, let's just dive right into today's episode. Here's what I want to talk about today. And I hope y'all ready for this. Here it is. It's a no for me. It's a no for me. And let me just say this, because the reason why I want to talk about this is because I know all of us deal with it. But the things that I kind of like to just target and deal with are the things that we deal with in the Christian sector, the church sector. And so I want to talk about this because this is something that is hard for many of us to kind of deal with and use. And this is what many of us are stressing about and carrying weight about. And that is the thing of telling people no. It's easy for us to say yes, but then we got to deal with the ramifications of it later because we said yes to something that we knew we wanted to say no to. So that's what we're going to talk about today. It's a no for me. So let me just start off by saying this. As people and as believers, we have been programmed and conditioned to chase a yes than to hear a no. We have been pushed to go after that yes than to hear a no. Because you hear it all throughout churches, all throughout the pulpit, by every Sunday. You hear stuff like the promises of God are yes and amen. Or every time we're praying, we're listening for a yes and not a no. We tell people to keep going until you get what you're looking for. If one door shuts, then go to the next one, because a child of God cannot be denied. Whatever you want, put your faith on it. That's the type of stuff that we are conditioning believers and people to hear and to go after, or we hear it in our homes and everything with our children and our siblings and our loved ones and things like that. We say stuff like, you can achieve whatever you put your mind to. Don't you settle for a no. You keep going until you get you a yes. Not realizing that sometimes hearing a no is necessary for us. Sometimes hearing a no is purposeful. Because watch this. Sometimes God allows us to hear no for protection. And then he allows us to hear a no for redirection. So I want to make sure that throughout this podcast episode, I want to make sure that we're reframing and renewing our minds when it comes to how we see the word no. Because one of the things I understand is this: you can't use it right if you see it wrong. So we have to stop looking at the word no and treating it like it's something evil, like it's of the devil. And in fact, I'm going to go as far as to say, when the word no is used correctly, it's actually good. Come on now. It's actually good when we use it correctly. Now, I don't want you reading what I'm not writing. Because can you use the word no in an evil way? Yes. Can you use the word no in a condescending, demeaning, demoralizing, selfish way? Yes. But watch this. The word itself isn't the problem. It's how we use it. Too often people say no out of anger. And we use it in the wrong way because we say it out of anger, when we should be using wisdom when we do say no. Because why does it take anger to push us to do things and to say things that we should be doing and saying out of wisdom? It's just like when you got those friends or those family members that get a little bit too much to drink on the inside, and then they start saying stuff that's really on their heart or really on their mind. Why is it that it has to take that, or why is it that it has to take anger to say the things or do the things that we should be doing with wisdom when we're not angry? Why does frustration has to pour that all out of us instead of using wisdom? So think about this. Saying the word no or telling people no, it's not evil. It's not evil. It's not bad. Because if it was, then the God that we call sovereign and holy would have to be looked at as bad because he used the word no. If the word is so bad. Because all throughout scripture you see over and over God using the word no. Not because he wanted to be bad, not because he just wanted to say no, because sometimes he says no for the sake of something better in your life. So because a lot of times we'll chase after things that we shouldn't chase after because we think it's good. Because we see the word promotion attached to it. We see this whole thing about we getting a raise attached to it, but we don't realize what's on the back end of it that may come with it because we're chasing after something. So God may allow a door to be closed because he has something better for you that's going to be less frustrating, that's going to be less painful, that's not going to take so much time away from you and your family. So sometimes a no is necessary that he gives us. Because when you look at 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 8, because in that chapter you see Paul pleading with God. He asked God 3 times to remove this thorn in his flesh, and this is what God said. This is what God answered was. He said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." So Paul is like, I'm dealing with an agitating situation and I'm asking you, Lord, to remove it. And God was like, nah. Paul was like, so you're not going to do anything about it. And God's like, no. My grace is sufficient for you. Now, remember, watch this. Remember this. Grace is not just unmerited, unearned favor. Grace is also unmerited, unearned ability. It's not only when God gives you favor you don't deserve, it's also when God gives you function you don't deserve, or when God gives you ability you don't deserve. So what God is saying to Paul is this: I'm going to give you grace, undeserved, unearned assistance to endure something I'm not going to change in your life. Ooh. And the reason I'm not going to change it is because even though it's agitating you, Paul, it's beneficial for you, Paul. Because you're focusing on the agitation, but you're missing the benefit. But Paul, I see the benefit that you're getting out of this. I see the way it's benefiting you spiritually, and I see how it's benefiting you spiritually because you're more spiritually focused now. You're more spiritually consistent now. So just like many of us, you're praying to God to remove a situation, to change a situation. God like, no. Because the way that you've been praying to me lately, I love that. The way that you've been chasing after me, I love that. The way that you've been wanting to be in my presence more, the more you've been in your word, the more you've been fasting. That's a benefit that I love that you don't see. So no, I'm not going to change it because of what it's doing between you and I. You've never been this faithful, but because this situation has caused you to be pushed towards me. So no, I'm not going to change it. But my grace is sufficient for you. So God said no, because there's a benefit you don't get if I say yes. Woo! There's a benefit you don't get if I say yes. So many of us are chasing a yes, not realizing that the no gives us benefits that we may not get if we're always looking for a yes. Man, God is good. And so watch this. As the church, as believers, we need to change how we hear no from God. and how we hear no from each other. Because when someone tells us no, it's not always a personal attack. It's not always rejection. Too often the enemy would twist our imaginations and just feeding us all this false narratives and thoughts in our heads. Because here's what the enemy is going to do. The enemy is going to put thoughts into your imagination, thoughts into your head, and cause you to interpret situations in a way that will cause you to turn a situation into something negative. So we'll start looking at the way people tell us no in a bad way. So we'll start saying stuff like, yeah, they tell us no because they don't like us. They don't like me, or they don't know how to be a team player. Or they think they better than you. Or they jealous of you. That's the reason why they saying no. Or they, this is what we love to say, Nicole. They hating on you. You see them speaking to everybody else. Why they not speaking to you? Because that's what the enemy does. He takes situations and twists it into something that is not. And so he wants you and I to feel like we are wrong when we're using the word no. When the only way you can say yes to the things that God has for you is if you are willing to say no to the things that are not for you. So we have to create a different mindset to the word no. Because if we don't see it right, listen to me now, if we don't see it right, then we definitely won't hear it right. So we got to get to the point where we understand the no. No doesn't mean I don't love you. No doesn't mean I don't want to help you. Sometimes no means I can't keep helping you this way. No doesn't mean that what you're asking me to do is not important to me. Because it is. No just means I don't think it's best for you or me that I do that. That's all I'm trying to get you to understand. Because right now I know what's on my schedule. I know what's on my mind. I know the things that I got to do. I know the stuff that's upcoming already. You don't. So I know what I can handle. I know where I'm focused at. And so if I take this on, I may not give it the type of attention that it needs. And so if everything falls through and don't work out right, then next thing you know, me and you got a problem because I said yes to something I felt pressure to say yes to when I should have said no. And sometimes we treat the word no as if someone is being mean or like it's bad, but we treat the word yes as if a person is being good. As if they're great, a great person or something. In the words of King Joffrey,
who told you that?
Who told you that? Okay, so let's go back to the church setting, because I see this a lot. I see this a lot all through my time in ministry and stuff. I've seen this a lot. We assume no is not being Christ-like, or that person is not being a team player, or we demonize them, or we speak negative about them. But if they say yes, then here we go right here.
OMG, they're so faithful. They have my heart. They have my heart. They love me. They love me. That's godliness right now. That's godliness. I can depend on them because they for me.
No, that's false. That's false. It's not the Christian thing to say yes to everything. That doesn't make you more Christ-like because you said yes. Most of the times, you know what that is? That's people pleasing, not godliness. That's what that is. And the last time I checked, people pleasing is not one of the fruit of the Spirit. Because if you read Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23 for yourself, the opposite of people pleasing isn't being rude, it's being real. And being real and true to who you are sometimes requires you saying no. You have to learn to say no. And here's something that needs to be talked about more often. But this right here is for my emotionally healthy people. Because everybody won't be able to handle you when you do what I'm about to get ready and talk about. Everybody won't be able to respond in a good way when you do what I'm about to get ready and talk about. Because what many of us need to do is create something I call guilt-free boundaries in your life. I mean, it ain't like I made that title up. I mean, I'm going to talk about something I call. But anyway, it's guilt-free boundaries in our life. This is where you create boundaries around you that you don't feel guilty about or pressure to move them or adjust them in any way because of the person that's talking to you. And some of us need guilt-free boundaries. We need it in our marriages. We need it in our dating life. You definitely need it in your dating life. Because if you don't create boundaries while you're dating with somebody, next thing you know, certain things gonna get too mixed up. And next thing you know, you're gonna be waking up and it's gonna be like, morning. And you're gonna be like, what happened? I don't know. You looked in my eyes, you said I was cute and everything like that, and bam, this happened. You need boundaries while you're dating. You need boundaries with your siblings, you need boundaries with your coworkers, and definitely you need boundaries with your church relationships. Now watch this. If you don't have this framework that no, it's not bad to use, you will not be able to build and defend the right boundaries in your life. Because if not, you will find yourself resenting and being frustrated by the very people you're supposed to be loved, that you're supposed to love or lead. If you don't create the right boundaries, if you don't stick to your boundaries, you're going to end up being frustrated and resent those who you are meant to love or lead. Because like this, boundaries don't ruin all relationships. Sometimes boundaries save them. And even when boundaries don't save the relationship, what boundaries will do, it will keep you healthy for the relationships God is truly calling you to. That's why boundaries is important. Because if not, if you don't put boundaries in place, you will end up in a relationship with friends, families, all those, and they will drain you. They will frustrate you to the point that when you do get around good, healthy relationships, then you're paranoid. Now you're agitated. Now you're responding in ways you shouldn't respond because they have drained you and ripped you up in so many ways and misused you. So now you're looking at people sideways because you're not wondering if you can trust them or not. And when you set boundaries, people are going to push back against your boundaries. But the thing is, are you going to be able to stand on your no? Are you going to be able to stand on business when you tell someone no? And yes, there's going to be some backlash. Yes, there are going to be some people that's going to be upset because you gave them a no. I know this is not something that's going to be easy. I'm still dealing with it myself. I'm still pushing myself in places to where I need to say yes to and what I need to say no to. Because this is not an easy thing. This is not an easy thing because this is something that we deal with a lot. And I said something earlier that I want to kind of like touch on a little bit now. I want to touch on this area, this whole thing on people pleasing. Because many of us are not saying yes because we want to do it. Most of the times when we say yes, it's because we don't want to be disliked. Or we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Or we don't want to be uncomfortable or be talked about. Paul said this in Galatians chapter 1 verse 10. He said this. He said, if I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Which means I can't lift someone else's desires above God's desires for my life. Because when I do that, that moves into a dangerous place called idolatry. And the other thing is, people pleasing can be very ineffective. Because it'll never end. People are only as grateful as your last yes. Because as soon as you give them a no, the next thing you know, it's all forgotten. So you trying to keep everyone happy burns you out and leads to nowhere. So when I'm talking about people pleasing, when when I'm talking about saying no, I'm not talking about never considering others. Because if you're married or on a team, you want those that you care for to feel valued and loved on. You don't want to dismiss them like that. But what you cannot do, you can't exalt their wants and their needs above God's. Because once you start doing that, like I said earlier, you move into a dangerous space called idolatry. Because loving others should never mean betraying your own God-given calling. Loving others should never mean always disregarding your peace, disregarding your health, your space, and here's a big one, your time. One thing you cannot get back is your time. And this is something I've been saying a lot lately for the past few months or so, and that is this. Free time doesn't mean availability. Free time doesn't mean availability. Just because I have free time doesn't mean I'm available to your needs and your wants or whatever list that you have or whatever plans that you have. No, my free time means that I'm not tied to a deadline. It means I don't have a boss. It means I don't have anything that I need to get done by close of business. What it means that I have the ability that if something jumps up that I wasn't expecting, I have the ability to shift things around to a point where I can focus on that so it doesn't stress me out or frustrate me. That's what my free time has for me. So you gotta make sure people ain't robbing you of your time that you cannot get back. Now watch this. You don't have to say no to everything. You know what you need to say yes to. And you know what you need to say no to. But you need to learn to say no to the unnecessary things. So you can say yes to the things that advances you. So that you can say yes to the things that make your life better, not just make you feel better. So you can say yes to the things that actually helps you evolve into a version of yourself that is consistent with who God has called and created and commissioned you to be. Because the blessing of saying no, watch this, is the making of a significant yes. When you learn to say no, you'll be able to say yes more to the things that God has for you. Because when you're saying yes to everybody else, when you're making yourself available to everybody else, eventually you would start shortchanging what God has for you. To a point, you'll drain yourself with all your energy. You don't have time to pray. You don't have time to read your word. You'll start praying, fall asleep, and don't say amen until the next morning. It gets in your way. It gets in your way. So you have to learn how to say no so it can create and make significant moments for you to say yes to. And know your no's. Know your no's. There are so many ways to say no, so many different types of no's. So many different ways to say no. Because watch this, some no's is based off how you say it, can create an opportunity for later. Because somebody asks you to do something or wants you to do something, you can say something like, no, but maybe another time. Because what that can do, it can keep the door open for the same opportunity that may happen down the road when you do have time to take it. But if you say no in a way where it causes somebody to be like, they don't want to do with that then. They may not even consider you next time. So learn how to say no in a way where it can keep the door open for opportunities that may come back around again that you just don't have room on your plate to take. And I know that the word no is like, I know it's such a hard word for us, especially in the Christian community, because many of us, we may feel like we may feel like we're wrong for saying it. Y'all get what I'm saying? Like, especially in the church area, it's like you feel like you're committing a sin or something. Like it's not Christ-like to say no. And sometimes if we're not careful, the church can make you feel like that. You will say yes, but then walk away saying to yourself, why did I say that? You start thinking of excuses to get out of it. Sometimes people disappear. But we have to get to a place where we're comfortable enough to say no and be able to walk away feeling guilt-free. That's the place we need to get to. But that's going to take consistency, and that's going to take boldness, and you're going to have to teach yourself when and how to say no, because it's necessary for you, for your health, for your time, for your purpose, for whatever God has for you. Learn to say no to the unnecessary things so that you can say yes to the necessary things. All right. Well, hey guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for tuning in today. And also, all I ask from you is that if you found value in what I said today, press the like button so that we can make sure that we're showing up in YouTube's algorithm. So we can be in everybody's timeline and all that. And it's just a way that we can grow our audience. All right. Until next time, I'll see y'all in the next episode.